Hello, I'm Paige Farrington.
And I'm Ashlyn Prendergast.
We are co-founders of Love Ignites Peace, and this is our podcast, the Love Ignites Peace Bathtub Chats #Book Club Edition, where every other month we read a book about a topic that has helped us get our freak, aka frequency on. There will be a slight change this year to our book club podcast. We are going to an every other month format so that our book club group and all of you that read along will have more time to finish the book. However, you don't have to read the book to enjoy the book club edition of our podcast. You can just enjoy the discussion and take away a few words of wisdom. There are many ways to enjoy the book club edition of our podcast.
As we said, we focus on a book that has helped us raise our vibration to the frequency of love, which is the energy that creates all things good, like the life of your dreams, peace in our communities, better relationships with your closest people, and beyond. This year, each book club pick will have a specific topic tied to how we are working to empower you to get your freak, aka frequency on.
This month was Ashlyn's pick, and she will share with you her topic here in just a minute. For all those that have been listening for a while, welcome back. And for our first-time listeners, we are glad to have you join us.
Our on-the-air book club group today is Teresa Hernandez, a longtime spiritual coach and entrepreneur and merchandising marvel.
Noelle Dunker, a teacher of children and a teacher of wisdom to both kids and adults.
Jenna Principe, a seeker of wisdom, marketing guru, San Diego native, lover of her people and life, and a bride this year.
Ashlyn Prendergast, a very wise woman still in her 20s, and my daughter. She has the heart of a lion and the mind of a business visionary. Ashlyn is the voice that keeps me in my lane and Love Ignites Peace's public presence moving forward. And finally, me, Paige Farrington, an author, entrepreneur, public speaker, and a never-ending student of life, love, and the human experience. You can find the books that we are currently reading and the ones that we've read, along with a little bit more information about each of us at loveignitespeace.com/book-club. As I said, February's book was Ashlyn's pick. What topic, Ashlyn, did this book address that helped you raise your frequency or get your freak on, as we say?
Okay, well, let me start at the beginning. So, since I graduated from college, or university, as our friends across the pond like to call it, I have honestly always known that there was more I was capable of, but I could never quite get the flow of adult life down. Not never, it's a work in progress, but things had pulled me away. I had sacrificed healthy habits like working out to keep up with other demands. And just like in general, I really felt a lot of constant stress, which I think many people listening can absolutely relate to. And I think I hear it from, a lot of people in every age group. You're pulled in 15 different directions, and it's sometimes hard to stay on track with what you're trying to create. So I applied the Love Ignites Peace formula, and I started asking the whys. I leaned into some maybes and started truly getting and growing towards my something more, which was creating a life that would allow me to achieve my goals and feel freedom and peace. So fast forward to last year, I began to implement a lot of structure and systems to help my type A free spirit, as I call myself, find form and discipline. And honestly, it felt so, so, so good. And I started to see results in not only how I felt, but the success I started seeing in different areas of my life. And I just knew that I had to share what I found out with all of you, as we're all on this journey of raising our vibration. So creating structure and form really did raise my vibration, and it created a freedom in my life. And I really, really want the same for everyone that's listening. This also goes hand in hand with the frequency of love, creating the life of my dreams, because the more form I did create, the more disciplined I did become, the higher my vibe felt. So like stress, anxiety, disappointment, all of those not love emotions really melted away, as this structure really helps me feel good in my day-to-day life. I also had more time to just live the life of good vibes and all those things that I wanted to do that got my freak on even further. So, to put one last bow around this, my statement for 2025 is that the life of my dreams is the reality of my life. And this book really fits perfectly with that intention, especially everything that I need to do to create that. And I'm just so excited. I can't wait to hear everyone's thoughts and leave each of you igniters with actual ways to bring form and structure to create freedom and just nothing but high vibes in your life so that you can create the life of your dreams too. So with that said, we better tell you what the New York Times best-selling Atomic Habits by James Clear is about. So hit it, mama.
All right. Well, the book we have read for January, February is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And no matter your goals, Atomic Habits offers a proven framework for improving every day. James Clear, one of the world's leading experts on habit formation, reveals practical strategies that will teach you exactly how to form good habits, break bad ones, and master the tiny behaviors that lead to remarkable results. If you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you, according to James Clear. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again, not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Here you'll get a proven system that can take you to new heights. Atomic Habits will reshape the way you think about progress and success and give you the tools and strategies you need to transform your habits, whether you are a team looking to win a championship, an organization hoping to redefine an industry, or simply an individual who wishes to quit smoking, lose weight, reduce stress, or achieve any other goal. All right, let's get to our questions, ladies. What, in your opinion, was the most important takeaway for you from this book? And do you think it actually did help raise your frequency?
Well, I'll go. I always like to show the book because I mark it with little folds, but I loved this book. One reason I had really never heard of it. So thank you very much. Highly recommend it. What this book, it wasn't a new concept for me. I had never heard the term atomic habits, but in reading it, it was so validating from my different careers and businesses I've had since my 20s to where I am now. I look back and it's so validating. I was doing exactly the habit stacking, the 1%. But it wasn't, I didn't call it that. But it's gotten me in all my careers, the consistency, the little bit every day. I used to train mostly women on calendar control, how to build your home-based business, etc. I would call the training, keep chugging, keep the train moving. It's the stopping and the starting that becomes detrimental, whether it's career or exercise, relationships, your beauty routine. It's the stopping and starting. He validated in different verbiage. It's about the consistency, the little bits every day. So, did I leap and bound a lot? Not so much, but it was so validating and re-energizing looking at the systems in my life today and what is working efficiently. So I did take a couple of things and redid a few minute systems in my home or whatnot, just to kind of tighten up the engine a little bit. So I found it so motivating, easy to understand, and easy to take the first step for someone who isn't familiar with it. So thank you so much. I truly liked every single page of this book and garnered so much valuable information. I hope that answered that question. Okay.
Excellent.
I loved this one too. So, before I answer the question, I was surprised at how much I loved it only because the name threw me off a little bit. One of my goals in my life has been to kind of like try to disentangle myself from hustle culture, as we call it, because I feel like that's been a really prevalent thing in my life, getting caught up in that of like, nothing is ever good enough, achieve, 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 to prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself. That's not at all what I got out of this book. And I even think in the summary that you read, Paige, I don't even think that begins to scratch the surface of what this book can enable for people. For me, I have so many takeaways. I showed you guys that I have my notes, but for me, the most important, because I think my most important takeaway, because I think everything else for me and the value that I'm going to get out of it builds off of this, is that your identity emerges out of your habits, and your habits are a way that you embody your identity. So I'm kind of reading, this might be a direct quote from the book. Your beliefs about your identity are based on the proof that you have of it through your habits. If you read every day, you have the evidence that you're a reader. To me, that was so mind blowing, because I think with habits, even again in the summary, it was habits about like working out or being a better, like quitting smoking or things like that. Wouldn't consider myself, I don't at this point in time have any like terrible habits other than maybe like procrastinating or some of the things that you were referencing, Ashlyn. But for me, this is more creating those habits that reinforce your identity. If I say that I am a good friend who really cares about the important things in people's life, I want to be the kind of friend who's sending out birthday cards to every single one of my people. I want to be the type of person who has the habit of writing handwritten thank you notes and not just sending a text. That's what I unlocked from this. In addition to so many other things, like how I can, be better at work and working out and those things. But to me, it was really like your habits are a reflection of your identity, one, and then everything else builds off of that. And this isn't a way to like hijack your day of like, how can you be so successful? It is about that, but it's about how you can build habits, because your brain needs to automate things. So, how can you automate the things that need to be automated to unlock the rest of your life to have less chaos? If I have better habits about folding my laundry, that's maybe one that's not great. I let my laundry sit in the basket a little bit too long. Then when I come home from a day, I'm not like so chaotic of I need to cook dinner, I need to fold this laundry, I need to do this. I can decompress and write in my journal and do the things that I want to do. And those to me, honestly, so simple, but so mind blowing. I have so many more takeaways, but for me, I think everything really builds off of your identity emerging out of your habits.
I'm going to tag off of that because by no surprise, I very much am 100,000% on the same page. That was my number one most important takeaway from this book. I absolutely love the concept of identity and that tying into then what choices you make from that. And the interesting thing about this funny little divine synchronicity, God wink, tying in all the things we've talked about the last several years on this book club, maybe not all the things, but a nugget of the divine synchronicity. Before I had even started reading this part of Atomic Habits, I had seen a woman post on social media about this concept of I am. So I even shared it on our Loving Nate's Peace team meeting that day. I was like, listen, we have to figure out our identity and, use those identities to create the power behind what we're working on. And so we got off the Loving Nate's Peace meeting and I had a full day and I was like, oh my gosh, like I really want to sit on the couch. But I had this full list of things I needed to do. And I said to myself, I am a woman who gets done the things that she needs to get done. I'm a woman who keeps her promises to herself. I'm a woman who achieves her goals. And literally saying those things to myself completely changed my vibe. I sat my booty down in that chair and I got to work because that is who I am. And so just tagging off it, it's such a powerful, so easily implemented, get your freak on tip. And I also do love how he talks about, making sure that your habits are in alignment with who you are. And Jenna, I think you tied that together beautifully in the idea of instead of coming home and feeling chaotic, like who are you? You're someone that values your inner peace. You value your spiritual connection. You value your groundedness. You value doing the things that calm your nervous system. Like those then are the priority to start. And so I think it helps focus us in this society that's asking 1,000 different things of us. Who are you? And from there, build the life that you want to live.
Who are you and who do you want to be too? Because that really took a lot of guilt from me, and even little things. It doesn't have to be so crazy. One thing for me that I procrastinated on for so many years is I really want to get practice film photography. I have a camera from my dad, an old film camera Nikon. It sits on the shelf. I've taken one roll of film pictures on it that has been sitting in the camera for 2 years. Why? Because, well, I don't really know how to use the camera. How do I get the film out correctly? What do I like? The pictures aren't going to be good. I'm not going to be great. This is a hobby. Like, first of all, it's not that serious. Second of all, you can't say you're a creative person or say you like to do these things if you never like practice or do the things you enjoy. And for me, like, I adopted so many habits of talking to myself, like the type of person who follows through with what they say they want to do goes and takes the film out and prints it. Like, and I don't need to feel guilty that I'm not there yet because I didn't have the systems, because I just have the want, but like not the follow through. And I realized that in so many of my things, like, I haven't done this yet, but like he gives the advice of going through your daily habits and like saying like good habit or bad habit. Like, I want to adjust this or I don't want to adjust this. Like, maybe I sit on my phone too long, like in the morning when I shouldn't be pressing snooze. There are so many things that could just empower your life to change for the better by making these small adjustments.
Amen.
Sorry, I'm so passionate about this. Like, there were so many things. Teresa's like, I didn't get any like mind-blowing nuggets, and maybe that's because you have way more wisdom.
Because
But there
I'm
was
50 years older than you. Dinner done yet?
there were so many things that I'm like, I feel this is so simple, yet so profound, and I don't know why I didn't just think of this myself.
Literally same. But you know what, JP? Take us to church. I love the passionate, like, passion moves people.
Noelle, what did you think?
So I have to tell you, I bought the book when it first came out and I read it. And then I can't find it. And I think I made a pile of books and I gave them away. And I think it was in that pile. I think for me, the first time I read it, I felt like it was just my frame of mind at the time that I read it. It was one of those do, 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 do. And I am at the point in my life where I want a lot more being and a lot more divine inspiration, inspired action versus forcing things to happen. And I'm guessing because it really wasn't like that. So I listened to it again this time. And I just like the reminder that it's really small changes to systems. Because we think about, I want to be this way. I want to be the person, I mean, this isn't me, but as an example that Jenna was saying, I want to be the person that handwrites all those note cards out. And for me, that's so far from where I am right now that it felt like something big. But when you really break it down to those small systematic changes, like, you know what? The first of the month, I'll look through all the birthdays that are this month and I'll get little cards and I'll have, I mean, it's just a systems change versus this big overhaul of your life. So I really liked that reminder. It was more process driven. Did I focus on raising my vibration when I was reading it? No, but the little changes that I continue to put in my life are all based on raising my frequency, getting my freak on. All of them are. So I know that by reading this and those things fresh in my mind, that will just flow right into those little small processes and changes.
So funny, Noelle. You and I didn't talk about this in advance, but we had like virtually identical experiences with this book. I read this book. It was recommended to me like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And I bought it, downloaded it on my Kindle and started to read it. And I was like, I'm just not going to finish this because like you, I was in that mindset at that time where it felt like do, 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 do. And I was in a place where I was like, I am done with that. I do not want to be pushed like that anymore in my life. I feel like, from like the moment I graduated from college until whatever, I was 50 some years old, it was like that push, 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 push. And I was done with that. But reading it this time, I really did have a different perspective on it. And I actually enjoyed it. I didn't love it like Jenna, Ashlyn, and Teresa loved it, but I liked the book and I thought it had some really very profound points. You guys had mentioned, I think, some of the profound takeaways, which is the identity and various things. There was another small little takeaway really toward the end of the book that was powerful to me. And that was the story he told about Steve Martin. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it's just this idea of you have to practice. And, you may practice for 10 years and then all of a sudden it's going to just look like you never had to practice because it's all just going to fall into place. And for me, that just felt like such a great reminder that did raise my frequency. It just felt very encouraging to me. And that felt good.
I think that's part of the reason why I love this book so much is because I felt really encouraged again by the fact of not getting so down on myself of this perfectionist where you have these goals, but you're like, why am I not quite getting there? Oh, I must not want it enough. This totally retooled and reconfigured my brain to or I'm not motivated enough, right? I don't have the same motivation as this person. And this flipped it on its head for me to feel like, no, actually, sometimes the motivation follows through from the action. You start the action when you actually don't want to do it at all. You build a habit and then it becomes second nature. And then you feel so much progress and relief that you're actually doing things and you to go through his steps, you're making it easy, you're making it rewarding. And then this was a kick in the butt for me. I have a list in my kitchen right now of just crossing out things that have been sitting on my list forever where it's like, why haven't you done it? And for me, this ties back to a book that we read a while ago. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was I don't remember what the concept was, but it was essentially the idea. I was the person who procrastinates because I want to make things perfect or just right. And I realized how much that was interacting or interfering with my ability to get things done. One of the things I did right away after reading this book, I've been wanting to get my investments in a line. My 401k at work is in a line. My regular savings account is in a line. I've always felt really overwhelmed by the stock market specifically. And I have had on my list to finish reading this book, have a conversation with my brother, and it's been sitting there for so many years, and I freaking did it. And I'm so proud of myself. It's not perfect. Probably didn't invest in all the right things, but I got the freaking ball moving. And now it feels great because I checked that off, and now I feel empowered to learn more instead of being well, I'm just, again, the identity. Well, I'm just not the kind of person who's good at that. I'm just not the kind of person who's I'm a good saver, but I'm not the kind of person who knows how to hijack the stock market. Well, why can't I be that kind of person? Start doing the habits and you can become that kind of person. And that to me was wow.
And you go back to using the I ams instead of I cannot, I am the person that hijacks the stock market. I am the person that is a photographer.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, 15 years ago, if somebody would have said, Paige, you're going to be a writer, I would have said, what planet, are you from? Because I hadn't written anything except a term paper, in college. That was the last probably serious document I've ever written. And so it was this gradual, I hired a writing coach. I spent a good 3.5 years just practicing. And during that process, I then started to say, okay, I'm a writer because I'm writing. This book validated all of that, like you said. Yeah.
I really think one of the main, it's not worded like a main item, but all the books we read always come back to the I am, self-awareness. The book is a different way of taking a moment, a few days, or whatever, and looking at one's life, having the self-awareness to recognize I'm a businesswoman, or I look around, I'm an artist. It's the self-awareness which comes into the next phase is an identity. And that for me, I think is the main little tidbit. It all boils back to self-awareness. And that's how you can look at who you are, who you want to be, and then start habit stacking. And that is what I would recommend to everybody. Little habits that you're already doing and stack another one on top of it. You get a lot done. It's very efficient. It turns into a system.
Yeah, well, I think being a very self-aware individual is such a great first step in getting your freak on, in journeying toward this unconditional self-love. I mean, that's where it has to start. You can't change what you aren't aware of, and you're so right. That's what these books do.
Who was it? It was on Oprah. Hello, 2.5 or more decades ago. I want to think it was Gary Zukav, but it might have been someone else. And he was talking to the audience, and somebody says something, and he says, look at what you are doing in your life. And I stopped for a minute, and I always wanted to be a dancer. I'm 5'2". My legs are, a foot long. Like, no, I'm not joking. I'm not that tall to be a beautiful, dancer. And I thought, oh my God, I literally dance for an hour every single day at Jazzercise for 25 years. I'm a dancer. You think you're going to exercise, but I was dancing and spinning and doing box steps and all this stuff at Jazzercise. I was a dancer. That's the self-awareness. What are you? That's what I got, which is your identity kind of journal. Keep tagging back on that.
I love it. I think one of my thoughts ties into actually our next question. So I'm going to go ahead and read the question and we can keep discussing from there. But the next question is, one of the author's main themes was, if you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. After reading this book, what do you think about that idea?
I actually want to take that even a step further. I think that it is not you. I think it's your programming. The way you were programmed, the beliefs that you have, the way you show up in the world or not show up in the world, all of that puts up a block for a lot of the habits you'd like to create, because you're hearing those other voices reminding you that you can't, or that's not the way it's done, or all of those things. So I feel like it's more the programming, which is how you build your systems. So
I think that's our mic drop moment, Noelle.
Oh, that's such a good point. We didn't get into the deeper identity of those anchors of self-beliefs, which was probably too deep for the depth in which this book was going from the author's perspective. But from a Love Ignites Peace self-exploration perspective, it's perfectly on the nose. I mean, we talk about our subconscious programming, we talked about our soul suitcase, talked about all these things in Love Ignites Peace, and those factors do absolutely play a role in what you do believe you're capable of. And then taking that even a step further to what we kind of discussed in the book, which is environment as well. Your cultural mores, what's normal in your family? Is it normal to overeat? I think that my family has an overeating problem, not my immediate family, but but one side of my family. And I thought that was totally normal. I never thought twice about the portion size on my plate or, excessively eating, because it was my family's culture. But those habits that we develop can often be from those things as well. So I totally agree with you, Noelle. And I think that the point that I really resonated with within this question or commentary is that he talks a lot about human nature in this book. He's talking about our primal brains. He's talking about our evolution, all these types of things. And he says it was never a lack of desire or knowing it was possible. I was thinking about that within myself, and it was never a lack of desire or knowing that things are possible. I just couldn't seem to make it happen within the structure I was living in. And so I needed to change and work within my human nature, which again is literally the principle of this book is how do we I don't know if you want to call it biohacking. Biohacking is such a fancy word right now in the sense of trying to get on top of your body and work with it and make it the most ninja machine it can be. But almost feel like I'm biohacking my primal brain. it's not a matter of me being the problem. It was the systems that I had. Period. The end, to answer that question. And I just thought it was really interesting.
Well, part of all this, again, it's identity or self-awareness or deprogramming, programming. But a lot of people think, oh, let's take exercise. I got to hit the gym and I've got to do and that they don't like it. It's just so challenging and uninspiring. Where, let me see, I love dancing. Why not do square dancing or this or that? And I think part of the habit is finding out what brings you joy.
Amen. I think that's another mic drop. I 1,000,000% agree with that. And I will tell you my own quick, brief exercise journey is I have created exercise in my life that I truly enjoy doing. And before that, I didn't disenjoy exercise. Disenjoy? I don't think that's a word. I didn't not enjoy exercising, but now I really enjoy it. It brings me joy. I love to do it.
Yeah. Something else I was just thinking, to kind of going back to, Teresa's talking about joy and bringing that thing. I think even having the awareness of the human nature is so key. Like talking about the fact that most people are going to get bored. Like the best of the best get bored. And that was such a mind-blowing thought to me, to think that, oh, LeBron James is out there and probably is kind of bored sometimes with his sport. He's not every day like, I'm so passionate, I want to do this. And I think if I would have been able to have that awareness, I think I would have been able to push through some different plateaus where I have stopped at different times in my life, thinking that I had to have this fire and this passion to the depths of my bone all the time. Otherwise, it wasn't worth it. And that awareness was huge for me. Like, you're going to get bored, but the people that make it are the ones that realize that and keep going. Or like Teresa said, find what brings you joy. Some of his other points are like, make it irresistible, make it satisfying. Like all these things to help you make it attractive, because that's how our brain works. Or one thought that I just absolutely loved was the idea that our primal brains are searching for survival and that quick hit fix to stay safe, to eat, to get that immediate pleasure. But we don't live in that anymore. We live in this long-term gratification society if we really want something. But then now we're fighting our primal brain that loves social media, that loves a quick hit of dopamine. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're not the problem. It's not you. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. This is literally like a biological situation that's happening. How can you support yourself in working within these parameters that you know?
That as well. That was so eye-opening for me, because it took off a lot of like the guilt, or like the, do I just not like have what it takes or whatever for certain scenarios in my life. Like knowing like we are primarily engineered to also be not lazy. I don't like that word, but look for the easiest solution. There's so many neurons firing in our brain, but all times we can't be like 100% all the time. We're looking to automate things. And I think I already like kind of answered this question earlier in my other responses, because I think this whole concept was really eye-opening for me, brought back a lot of the confidence of like, yeah, it's not you, like it's your systems. And another thing that was really eye-opening kind of within a layer of this question was the difference between motion and action. Because I think that we're really not taught as a society. Like we think we're doing the right things because we just spent these hours like doing the research or getting prepped or feeling like ready to go, or like making sure, we took the course to make sure we know how to do the thing, but then we didn't do the thing. And I realized I spend a lot of my time in the motion area, thinking I'm like getting things done, particularly with the more work oriented goal kind of stuff. And Ashlyn, I'm sure you can relate to this, because we've had these moments where it's like, well, then I did this, we spent hours doing this, and it's like, but what did you and not that that's not great, but that's not enough, and that's not going to get you to where you're going. And I don't like to again use the word enough, because I feel like this feels like the go, but it is just like the progress over perfection reiteration really helped me, because greatness, quote unquote, however you want to define that. And even greatness to me is honestly just living a life of joy. That also doesn't just happen. That comes from, even if you could, even living a life of joy sounds so simple and easy, right? Think of all of our life experiences on this podcast. Living a life of joy comes from the habits of teaching you the way you want to live, what nourishes you, what daily food do you intake that makes you feel good? What daily movement do you take? What kind of spiritual practices are you doing? Are you meditating? Are you, um, you know, reading? Are you praying? Are you journaling? Not that you have to do every single one of those things all the time, but that's also an accumulation of habits. And so, yeah, getting out of the motion, and even that, sorry, I'm going off on so many tangents, but the 2-minute rule, even like, we can all try to do something for 2 minutes, meditate for 2 minutes every day and see what that does. And it's just like, get the train moving, like Teresa said. And the things that don't feel good and feel too push, like even as I've been reading this book, I'm like trying to create some new systems. I'm like, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good. Like I'm pushing too hard. Let's try something else. Like I don't like this habit, and I don't want this habit to be part of my daily life just because Mr. like person on Instagram says like, you have to do this. Like, like try some things out, do them for 2 minutes, see how they make you feel. And that's how you change your systems little by little.
My head, for those that are listening, not watching, was vehemently nodding in agreement with Jenna during her little speech. And I also just wanted to do a shout out to our daily Frēq, like the things that you just talked about, all those daily choices to raise your vibration, to live that life you're talking about of joy. That is in that daily frequency work.
And can I share one more thing, Ashlyn? You know about this. That towards the end of the year, I was really going through a funk. Didn't totally understand what it was led by. I'd totally fallen off my supplement game, and like I've found a good supplement routine that helps me a lot, like B vitamins, magnesium, whatever. Different strokes for different folks, but I found something that worked really well for me. During the holidays, that habit went out the window. Your girl was eating so much sugar, so much crap, which is good for the soul. We got to do that. But like when all your other habits fall off track, and then you're like, why do I feel like absolute garbage, physically and mentally, but mostly mentally, because I knew I'd feel like physical garbage, but mentally I was like, what's going on? This book, I was like, girl, you gotta get back on your supplements. Make it easy, put them on the table so you see them every morning. Like, make it rewarding. The reward is like, I'm gonna feel better. Bit on my supplements, been doing a habit. I feel great. So easy. Like, that's an example from this book that's not like go, 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 go. That's a little habit that absolutely changes my life in every single way. And it takes me approximately 5 seconds to do.
And it's a system. And the system itself is I'm going to put them in front of me on the counter so that I remember to take them.
Yep, exactly.
One little nugget on that system note is I have a goal of walking on my walking treadmill or just in general for 45 minutes a day. I'm doing this personal training program. And what I have been doing is I literally put my socks and my shoes on the treadmill. Like it makes it that much easier. I walk up, I put them on, I'm on the treadmill. It's not like in my closet and I have to go get this and I have to take them off and I have to put them away. It's like, no, they live right there on the treadmill. Make it easy. Eliminate friction. Well, does anybody have anything else they want to say about that question?
My only thing on systems, and I'm more talking about not in a corporate environment that they have, that's a whole nother system topic, but in your daily life systems. I have found in my experience when we talk about habits and making them fun, well, we didn't say it, but fun is my fun factor. So Jenna, your system is setting your supplements out on the counter and they're ready to go in the morning. Mine would be, I love making my latte every morning after I make my bed and get dressed and before I even come downstairs. My supplements, everything's there, but my habit and my reward is the latte. And I take that 15 or 20 minutes and it's just the fun factor. Maybe I have to go to the post office and drop things off at a neighbor's and pick something up over here. For me, I have a little luxury money. My thing is I love to go to Starbucks. My favorite drink is an iced tea. I reward myself. I reward myself. I drive through, I get the iced tea and do my errands. And it is an instant fun factor in my system. So I would say add a little self reward and fun. It makes all those little things easier. It makes your systems easier. That's just how I do.
That's such a good reminder, Teresa. I was trying to think of that today when I was on my walking pad. I'm like, how do I make this more fun? What can I do? I was like, maybe I need to watch TV while I do it. I don't know.
You like to talk.
That's what I do.
You like to talk on the phone with your friends. You like to merge your merging pattern while you're walking. That's a
idea.
reward too.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Well, this ties into that next question, which is the author makes the point that your habits can compound for you or against you. For those with the book, there's a chart on page 19 that demonstrates this. The author goes on to say, making a choice that is 1% better or 1% worse seems insignificant in the moment. But over the span of moments that make up a lifetime, these choices determine the difference between who you are and who you could be. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformation. Improving 1% a day results in a 37% change roughly by the end of the year, good or bad. So what is your take on that, and how, maybe we can just share with the listeners, how do you get your freak on? How do you, body, mind, or spirit, improve 1% every day that raises your vibration?
Actually, I'm going to start this because I think, we're all unique. We're all different. So when I look back over my life, especially the last, almost 20 years, about 20 years ago, I made a commitment to who I wanted to become. And, for me, that was like more of a mental, emotional, spiritual journey. It wasn't how much I wanted to exercise. It wasn't making sure I had my dishes done, every night before I went to bed. It wasn't any of those kind of do things. It was this other, I wanted to change other habits, more intangible habits in myself. So I think this whole 1% thing I think we have to start with, what is it for you that is the 1% thing that really, excites you or feels really, really, really important to you? And once you make that decision, then I think the 1% better, it actually becomes easier because you can do little things when you really pick the thing that really you personally deeply profoundly want to work on.
I 100% agree, Paige, because I was thinking more of that internal growth for me. And so I was, for me, it started off, I wanted to notice more when I was out of alignment with the person I know I am. So the truth of who I am when I was out of alignment. So, and I'm very fortunate because I teach this to kids. So it's a constant reminder. Like if you spent your whole day talking about it, at least 2 of my days, talking all about being like that, noticing your thoughts, your words, and actions, how things feel in your body. And that 1% for me is each day, can I notice a little quicker? Can I be a little more aware so that I can shift into a more loving, compassionate, self-compassionate way of showing up in my life? So that 1% more was more of those noticings versus something external or creating something external. It was that inner world.
I snowball off that because I feel the exact same way as you ladies. That was the one thing that stood out to me. Mine was a little more, it's about creating that like internal peace for me and that internal knowing of who I am. And you can feel it when you like sway. Like, I don't want to say sway from who you are, but when you go into those feelings of like anxiety, guilt, anger. Like you're pulling away from the frequency of love, which is who you are and who you're made to be. So like just steal Loving Night's Peace's whole premise. And so for me though, it was also about what are the outside things I do that reflect that for me personally. For me, it's reading books like this. It's journaling every night, but also I get trying to figure out where I can give myself space of like when you're truly exhausted at night, don't force yourself to journal. Like, yes, it is about creating that habit, but also you don't want to resent your habits either. And you don't want it to feel like this like templated approach to life. Like, first I do this, then I do this. Like, you don't want it to be robotic, but it's meditating, it's finding movement that feels really good in my body. It's trying new things and being open-minded to the experience. It's reminding myself when things arise to try to surrender and go with the flow a little more, and even though my tendency to try to control the situation. So it was a lot of external habits, but not in the way you might like think. I mean, some of them are like journaling every night for me. I want to make a goal for like how many books I want to read this year, because reading more has given me a lot of joy, and at reading and writing give me a lot of joy. And then yeah, just like those spending time outside. Not all of these are going to be habits in the way of like at 11 o'clock every day, I'm going to go outside, but it's like making the habit of checking in on your spirit, and then recognizing the action you need to take to nurture your spirit. Like those are habits too.
I think it's so important that like what you said, don't beat yourself up if you're tired and you're not that night, because when you look back, when I look back over the last 20 years of my life, you can't quantify that 1%. You really can't figure out. But when I look back, the person I was 18 years ago is no way, shape, or form the same person I am today. And that is all because of, and I didn't even think about it as this 1%, but it's all because of just making that inner commitment to who I wanted to become. And I think it's this, it's the same thing for Noelle that she just talked about. Who did she want to become? And I think you're saying the same thing. Who do I want to become? Just little baby steps every day. And you look back, I'm telling you, when you look in the rearview mirror, at some point you'll go, wow.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I'm glad, like, to emphasize again the not beating yourself up part. That I think is I'm still really trying to find the balance of that, but that was the one part of the book. He did say something that I think works great in some systems, like for example, corporate life, or like if you really if you're super unhealthy and you have an exercise goal and you're trying to stay on track, like never skip a day, but never skip two. For me, like I know in my personal life, like I need to apply more softness to that, because there are certain habits, again, where you don't want to resent your habits. Like sometimes movement every day, or sometimes exercise every day is not realistic. Like for example, I got sick for 2 weeks. Okay, well I had to skip 14 days because I had a respiratory problem and I couldn't even breathe walking to get the mail. And so, like, obviously, I think everybody realizes that there's like a softness in that, but I think we need to, as individuals, keep that in mind, because we're our own worst critic. And as much as these habits can help us, um, they can hurt us too in ways that I don't know that he touched on in the book. So like give yourself that softness, and like give yourself recognition if you're making that habit tracker, that even if there's lapses in the days or whatever, when you do look back, to your point, Paige, like it honestly is even like immeasurable how much progress you make. And as you see that over a long period of time, it's incredible. You're not going to necessarily recognize that in every single day to day.
I do like that you brought that up, because that was the only and singular thing during my read of this book that I had a moment of pause, because I agree. What about giving grace and listening to your body, and like all those little nuggets that we work on leaning into? But then I thought about it a little bit more and I'm like, listen, Ashlyn, you do a pretty good job of that. You actually need the kick in the pants to not miss 2 days. And I do like that he didn't say never miss a day because that's just absolutely unrealistic and unattainable. And if that's the expectation, then you're going to quit before you start. But I do think that I could probably apply for the most part. It's okay to miss 1 day, but don't miss 2 because then you don't let the train get away from you. And yeah, I just agree with you, Jonna. That was the one where I was like, well, but what about this softness? What about our understanding of like listening to your body that you're tired or you're on your period or whatever it is that's like, throwing you for a loop. I don't know. I just, yeah, that would be my only point of contemplation beyond what he said.
And I can experiment with where it feels good to push and where it doesn't. Because, like, for example, with journaling, I absolutely love to journal, but I know that if I'm like, when I'm creating that habit and making it consistent, it feels great. But I know on the days where I'm like, this doesn't really necessarily feel like it's going to be fulfilling right now, pushing it doesn't serve me. Whereas, on the contrary, earlier this week, worked out, felt really tired, didn't want to do it the next day. And then I was like, build your habits, Jenna. We're going to do 10 minutes of yoga. And then 10 minutes became 30. It felt fantastic. And I was so proud that I pushed myself through it. So like feel into that. And he does talk about like experiment with habits that feel good and don't. And like, I think you, by the same token, you experiment with when it feels good to push through. I think, if you have this big goal, that's where you need to push. Like you're not going to accomplish that goal if you don't have the habits that to support it. But I think there are other ways where we can and need to be softer.
I agree completely. And I just will reiterate from the, daily frequency things that we've all said: food, exercise, meditation. I've started doing red light therapy. I do my infrared sauna, music, like just things that make you feel good.
Yeah. Teresa, do you have anything to add to this particular question, or should we move on to our last question?
Everything I try to do is so that I feel good. If I'm going to exercise, it's going to be something I go with a friend because I like that. It's something that I enjoy doing. If I have a job, it's a job that I enjoy. Set yourself up for success. Surround yourself with the right people. I don't know. Is it, do we make it too hard sometimes? Possibly, keep it simple. Set yourself up for success in all life. Your habits will come, your life will flow, and keep it simple. Keep it simple. I honestly, even the habits, keep them simple. They'll build on themselves.
So you're inspiring me. I'm all about flying my joy in what I do, but I sometimes I'm like, how is that possible? How do I build the habits and do the things I need to do while I do that? And you're like, oh, it's easy. If I exercise, it's at the front. If I run errands, I get a Starbucks. If I take my vitamins, I have my latte. I'm like, wait.
I know it probably sounds so silly, but what makes you happy? Incorporate those in what you can call them habits or your to-dos or your whatevers. But if you can incorporate a little bit of joyfulness,
That 1%'s gonna.
the 1% is there. And you look, I'll take Paige invited me to Toastmasters over a year ago. Like, I thought about going maybe, I don't know, 18 years ago when I moved out here. I didn't follow through with it. You invited me. Okay. There's 2 reasons I go to Toastmasters. I have no desire to get up on a stage and be a speaker. I go because it's fun. I look at the table topics. It's like we're playing a game on a Friday night. It's fun. I have a couple of people there that are friends. I look forward to going. I don't like getting up at 5:30 and getting dressed and driving in the cold. But I do like having fun and playing a game and seeing my friends. And lo and behold, I'm a speaker. Who knew? Again, set yourself up for success. What is joyful? And try to incorporate that. into what will become a habit.
Very beautifully said, everyone. And let's move to our very last question here. Basically, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate this book and would you recommend?
Well,
Who
I'll go.
wants to go first?
I will. I will give it a 5. I would highly recommend it. I think it's easy to understand, easy to build on, whether you're at the age I am and it helps you reflect on my identity and who I've become, or you're in your 20s and you're looking at who do I want to become. You can build upon that or reflect upon it, and we are always learning. I enjoyed it. I loved some of the stories. I highly recommend it, and I give it a 5.
Strong 5 for me as well. And I would just recommend any listeners who haven't read it yet or are recommending it to others to read it through the lens that we're talking about here in the Loving Nights Peace podcast. Because even Noelle and Paige, you mentioned when you had read it previously, it really kind of took off on a different tone. And I think that my joy and love for the book had everything to do with the lens that I was reading it through. Because again, I had initially thought like, oh God, this is going to be like a how to hack your day and like do the whole thing. I'm like, I just don't want to do that anymore. Like my next goals and phase in life is to build a family, have children, those kind of things, like, and lean into that flow. And, I think, and then I was like, well, if Ashlyn loved this so much, like I'm going to love it too. And like reading it through that lens made all the difference. And I've already made so many positive changes that are going to impact my life. And I'm looking forward to uncovering more as I go through my days and can reflect on how this book can help.
Well, I'm going to give it a 4. I did like it, but even viewing it through a different lens this time, I didn't feel like anything was earth-shattering, but it was like these really good reminders. And looking at each chapter from the lens of where you currently are and in a way to uncover the truth of who you truly are versus layering more on top. Like really, and it comes down to what brings you joy, how you show up in your life as the true you, not the programmed you. So there's layers of deprogramming so that the habits you're creating are truly in alignment with who you truly are, not even who you're becoming, because all you're becoming is who you truly are. You're not making up a fictitious character. You're taking layers off of that programming to become who you truly are. And you won't be pulled or you won't desire something in your life unless that's part of who you truly are or part of a process you have to go through to uncover who you truly are. So really maybe dropping some of those programming and some of those habits and maybe making room for who you or being who you truly are. So I give it a 4 because it didn't really reiterate that enough to me. It felt like you were picking up new things versus really letting go of things and picking up the truth of who you are.
Well, Noelle, you and I are in sync on this book tonight, I think. I also am going to give it a 4. And partly, I just, we are in this hustle culture and it is do all the time. We seem to, we value each other for our performance versus valuing each other for who we truly are. And though I think this book touched on that idea very much, it still, to me, had this feeling of you have to do, and be this person who accomplishes a lot to be considered a success or maybe even a valuable human being. And though we're all creators and we're in this world to create and do, I just think that we have pushed for so many years that honoring the being a little bit, even if you're not getting 1% better every day, is still not such a bad idea.
I'm going to give it a 5. I feel very aligned with Jenna and Teresa on this book, obviously. I mean, I feel aligned with everyone. I feel like the points that you have made, Noelle, are really powerful and bring a lens that is important and powerful for the listeners and for us here on this book club. And this is one of the points of book club. I love hearing everyone's different perspectives because there are many different ways to experience the same read. So I absolutely love it. And I just truly will say that this book has changed my life. And I don't say that lightly. I think maybe I've said that about Angels in My Hair and a few other books, but really creating structure has brought me freedom. That's the irony. Creating systems and structure actually allows you to thrive in a way that feels so juicy and so good. Now, if you're really good at structure, maybe this is a moment for you to take a think about, well, maybe I should experience a little more flow and grace, but for the people that are looking to just in general feel better and raise your vibration through being consistent on the things that align with your identity, this is a great read. So I would recommend. And with that said, we should probably tell them about the next book, Mama Llama.
Yes, our March-April book will be The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This is a classic. It reminded me a little bit of when for our very first book club, we read The Alchemist. And for some reason, it's a different book, but it reminded me of we're going back to a really important classic, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And Teresa picked this book. Teresa, what was the topic that raised your frequency that you wanted to have our listeners explore with this book? Our listeners and our readers explore with this book.
I picked this book up years ago. And in any type of spiritual counseling that I do, or even friends, it's always the top 2 books I recommend. The 4 Agreements. For me, Don't Take It Personally has always been a personal number 1 key for me. It says it all. Don't take it personally. It's not about me, whether someone wants dessert or not. It gives you that gap in that space to not get attached to drama. So that's mine.
I'm really excited to read this. I've never read it before, and I know exactly what the cover of the book looks like, and it's been on my list forever. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I want to reiterate that's the first book I read on this when I opened my life to new possibilities. It was the very, very first book I read, and I went and listened to him speak right away. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.
I just kind of got an epiphany about why you and I in particular may have loved the book, which is our timing in life and the way in which we are not that fresh out of being in a place of life where all these systems are created for us. And that really reinforced our identity, because I know for me, part of my identity was always being a really good student, because you're in this system of school. And sure, I created systems of good study habits, and I surrounded myself with like-minded students who are really motivated to do well and accomplish and be ethical in the way they performed in education. And those guardrails were created for so long, even like being an athlete, being all these different things. Well, we were in these clubs and there were choices that we made, but you're on this path that keeps you in between these 2 guardrails. And then you become an adult in your 20s and no structure is created for you. You create your structure. And that's really hard. And you have a little bit of this identity crisis in the midst of that, especially when, in your case, where you're creating your own business and building, it's like, okay, now I have to create this structure. You went from not really having to create that much structure at all because due dates and deadlines and all these things are set for you. But now it's like, okay, well, now I know who I am at my core, but like now who am I? I don't have any of this structure in place. And it seems really daunting to create it because I'm here and I want to go there. But like, that's too much of a leap. And that the perfectionism of like even getting started seems like too much because, my end point is way over there. And so I think that's a big reason why it probably hit you and I in the way that it did.
I agree with that. And something else that you said that I think is the nail on the head of why it hit us so much is because of our perfectionist type A tendencies. Like, I related so much when you were talking about just not starting, because I was like, I want to get here and it needs to be like this. Like, it needs to be this perfectly polished thing here. And bridging that gap, it just seemed too daunting. It's not about that. One tiny micro step at a time will get to that big thing. So I totally agree with you. And that's where it's also been really cool on this discussion to hear from women on all different walks of life. Like, it's motivating and it's inspiring. And I totally agree with you though, Jenna.
I must be in the middle of everybody. Reading the book, I read it as a way to simplify. I didn't get out of it at all to do. It was, geez, if you do this, well, do this with it. And you killed two birds with one stone. To me, it was how to simplify your life. And in doing so, you get to the end and you look back and you're like, wow, I am who I want to be. So I must be somewhere in the middle in my perspective of reading it. I read it as a way to simplify. Interesting.
And the way you're talking about it is so simple. I love it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how I interpreted it. Yeah.
Gosh, I love it. Well, I'm going to close us out with one of my favorite parting quotes. It's from page 117, and it says, "One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is join a culture where your desired behavior is a normal behavior. New habits seem achievable when you see others doing them every day. If you're surrounded by fit people, you're more likely to consider working out to be a common habit. If you're surrounded by jazz lovers, you're more likely to believe it's reasonable to play jazz every day. The culture sets your expectation for what is normal. Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have yourself. You'll rise together." And ladies, that is what we are doing here on this book club. And everyone that is listening, everyone that is reading along, we are a part of a culture here that are raising each other up to be the people that we are, as Noelle has put it. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We are so happy that you tuned in. Yes. And with that said, get your freak on.
As always, I'm sending you love from my heart to yours.